Welcome back. Now, in this session, we're going to talk about what the front end and the back end development is and how the internet works. Now, we're talking about the whole of the team. We're talking about the project manager down to the testing specialist. Now, we want to dwell on web developers. Now, what do they do? Like I said earlier on, they translate the graphic designs, the mock-up pages that was being done by the UI UX designers, and present them in codes so that it will be translated to 1 and 0 for the browser to interpret and give us what we want. But doing this, we have two I'll use the word sub branches or sub development inside this or inside the web developers tax. We have web developers dedicated to front-end development, and we have the developers dedicated to the back-end development. And yes, with that asking question, there are those that do the two. They do both the front-end and the back-end development. Yeah, but I would separate both of them and tell us how it works. So now the front-end and back-end development are two distinct but interrelated aspects of web development, each with its own set of responsibilities and technologies. So, like I said earlier, each of them have their special rules, but they work together to actually achieve a common goal, which is to deliver a project. So now understanding the difference between them is crucial for anyone interested in pursuing a career in web development. So now ask yourself, what is web development? What's the front end and the back end development? I'll just give us a pictorial view of what it is. Okay, let's say you go to a website, you input your details to log in, your email address and your phone number and your password. What happens is you send a request, which is the front end, which is this first place. So you as a user, you are the user, we are the users. This front end development collects information, collects data from the users and sends it to the back end. And what does the back end do? The back end responds, and now the front end displays that response on the screen. I'll come again. We, the users, we interact with the front end part, which is the visual part of an application that the users interact with. So any app, any website actually interact with, you're interacting with the front end part of that website. That is what we see. It's more like the visual part of the website. But what goes on in the background? Tomorrow you go to your Facebook and you see your images still there, your chats are still there. All these informations are stored in the back end and are being sent upon your request to be displayed in the front end. So now, using this example, you collect your data. What's the data? You your username and your password. Let's say your email address and your password. It sends it to the system, to the backend. What does the backend do? It checks the database because all your information are being saved in a container, the database, and it looks for your name and process. Oh, the name is there. Okay, yes, it's here. What's your password? What's your ID to get that particular to tell us that this is you, this is really you. That your password comes in. So, oh, this user, we have the information of this user. Now we go through to the file system and bring all informations about this user and send it back to the front end, and it displays on your screen and it'll tell you, oh, welcome to our website. You do this, you do that, you see your images, you see everything that you've saved for some time displays there on your screen. So that's just a simple back and forth between the front end and the back end. Front end collects data, sends to the back end receives and sends response to the front end. for display for the users. Now, this is just a typical example of what it is. Yeah, the front end is what we see. Sometimes you can see a simple website, just a very beautiful website, just maybe a page or two, but what goes on behind is actually very alarming, because that's where the backend comes in. The backend does all underground work. They are like the invisible workers. They go about doing everything that will make the website functional. So when you have website that has to do with saving informations, your username, your images, your anything that has to do with storing of your information for you to get in maybe later on, your chats and all that, all this information are sent to the backend. So the backend does all the logic to save, to send, and all that. So this is just a typical example of what the front end and the backend is. This is what you see, the front end. But the backend, you can't see how it is for that particular front end to be that beautiful. Now, let's just dive a little bit of what front end development is. Front-end development, often referred to as client-side development, focuses on the part of the website or web application that users interact with directly. Like I said earlier, this is where we interact with every website you go to, every app you open, what you interact with is the front end. So it deals with the visual and interactive element that the user sees and engaged with in their web browsers. So now, what's responsibilities? So the user interface, front-end developers are responsible for designing and creating the user interface of the website. Now we're talking about the browser. We're not talking about graphic design now. When you talk of creating, designing the user interface, we're talking about what the browser displays. That is what I'm talking about here. So it includes the layout, navigation, moving from one navigation meaning moving from one page to another. Click on this button, you go to this place. All those things have been done by the front end developer. You talk of user experience. They ensure that the website is user friendly and provides seamless and enjoyable experience for visitors. So these are like similar rules to what the UI UX designers have done. But now we are the one being the developers to put it into action, to put it into practice. So now you take your phone and you're able to see the you're able to see your web page fitting to your screen of your smartphone. But you open that same website in your desktop, it has a different view. That's a responsiveness. Those things are being done by the web developer, the front end developer, making it user friendly. Not that when you open your web browser and you open your phone, it's just scattered in your phone and all that. So all those things, the front end developer ensures that your website is actually responsive to any device and actually comes out as the UI UX developer has done and drawn in this graphic design. So the next responsibility of the front-end developer or is the use of HTML for structuring web content, CSS for styling and layout, and JavaScript for adding interactiveness and dynamic features. Don't worry, we'll come to this. Like I said, this is just a foundation. In our subsequent sessions, we'll dive right in. We'll go further to what this HTML is, what CSS is, and a little bit of how we use JavaScript for interactivity. So let's just have this in mind. Let's just know that there's something called HTML, there's something called CSS and JavaScript. But these are the responsibilities of the front-end developer to use to achieve the goal. You have cross-browser compatibility. So the front-end developer ensures that this design shows, just like I said about responsiveness, that when you open a particular website on your phone and your system, it comes out well layout. Same with cross-browser compatibility. There are some designs or there are some coding that it works for the Chrome browser, let's say you are styling. When we come to CSS, we'll talk about that. You are styling a particular color or a particular design, and and you you it works on your Chrome, but when you go to, let's say, Edge or Microsoft browser, you see that it doesn't work. So the front-end developer focuses more on making these things compatible so that when you go to this website, go to this particular browser, it shows the same way. So what are the tools and technologies for web development? We have the HTML, which is the hypertext markup language. Is used for structuring content. We'll come to that. It's just, like I said, a rundown of what we want to do. CSS, cascading style sheets, are used for styling and layout. We have a JavaScript, a programming language used for adding interactivity. The front-end frameworks and libraries. We have tools like React, Angular, and Vue.js. They are commonly used for building complex front-end applications. Don't worry about all this. We're going to talk more about this. Like I said, we are building a foundation. We are trying to lay a good foundation, a good background to all this. Before, in our subsequent sessions, we're going to do more practice. We're going to talk about HTML, we'll talk about CSS, we'll talk about JavaScript. And in an advanced way, we'll talk about tools like React, AngularJS, and Vue.js. So you might have seen all these logo different ways. You have the CSS, the HTML, you have JavaScript, SVG, all these things. With time, we're going to be familiar with it. And when you see them, you smile. I'm like, yeah, I know what this is. This is Chrome. This is GitHub. This is CSS tag and CSS icon. So we'll go to the backend development. Backend development, often called the server-side development, deals with server-side logic and infrastructure that powers website and web applications. It is responsible for managing data, user authentication, and the behind-the-scenes functionality. Yeah, I use the word the behind-the-scenes functionality because there are many things the backend developer does behind the scene. Not just authentication, not just managing data. There are many things. And don't worry, before just have the idea that there are many things that have been done in the back end for your website to be functional. But responsibilities, let us go to responsibilities of a backend developer. We have server-side management. So like I said, the backend developer is responsible for handling the management, all interaction with database, uh, interacting with the web browser in terms of web hosting, in terms of where you host your websites, interacting with the like database management, they design and manage database to store and retrieve data effectively. So one of the major roles of the backend developer is to store data. Very soon or subsequently, you hear of what we call CRUD, CRUD, which is C for create, R for read, U for update, and D for delete. These are the basic functions that the backend does. You create a database, you create a user, you read the user to fetch it for the user to see, you update the username, which is the update, then you can delete. But we'll talk more on that. But just have an idea that the backend developer is responsible for database management, server-side management, and also server-side logic, because backend developers write code that processes requests from the front end. Remember the image I showed us earlier on? When you input your username and password, it sends it to the back end, and the back end checks the database. It looks for the database for your name and your password. If there's something like that in the database, then it comes and print and allow you access to sends it to the front end that, yeah, this guy is there, is part of our platform. But if there is no information about the username or the password, you get an error and tell you that this user is not found. So that's just a simple interaction between the front end and the back end. So you have security. Security, the back end also ensures further security because ensuring the security of user data and the application as a whole is a crucial responsibility. So they don't just keep your data in database. They don't just keep your information in database. They try to safeguard it, write code so that um, scammers and all that, hackers rather, will not be able to go into there and get information that will be used against you, or will be information that, if it's something around finance, of information that will be used to get information or even crash the website itself. So we have scalability. Backend developers plan for and implement solutions to ensure the application can handle increasing load of traffic. We'll come to that. But basic idea is they try to make the code scalable so that when you have like 1,000 users and thousand of users actually working on the website at the same time, they'll know how to handle it so that the website will not crash. I know there are sometimes where you see that Nigerian server is down, they just open application for something like so. Sometime this year there was a time that NNPC opened their website for employment, and in less than 9 hours the site was down because a whole truck of traffic. Everybody was going to the website to apply for this, apply for that, and all that. And mm, it got to an extent where, well, I would say the system could not carry and it crashed. That was that. And later they had to rectify it. So the backend developer is responsible for making sure that no matter the users, number of users and all that, the system still flows and all that. So we'll go to the technologies used in backend development. For the backend developer, we have several side languages. You have Python, you have Ruby, you have PHP, you have Java, you have Node.js. These are commonly used for backend development. And all these language I just called are different languages you use to communicate with the machine, to the computer, so that it will understand that one and zero I've talked about. And when we get to this place, I will tell you that, oh, you now learn the rules. If you want the computer to understand this, do it like this, right? If you want a conditional statement, if so and so and thing happen, do this. If the user is found, send the user details. If the user is not found, send this error message. All this information, you learn how to use the right syntax, let's use the word syntax, to interact with the machine to understand, okay, this is what the user wants. So we have the backend development also works with database. We have SQL database, you have NoSQL database. You also have several frameworks, server side frameworks. We have frameworks like Ruby on Rails, Django, Express.js, Laravel. All are just way to simplify backend languages. But we're not going to dwell more on this because our main focus is the foundations of web development. Now, these are some, we might have seen this logo one way or the other. We might have, okay, this and that. So these are just Python, you see C++, you see PHP. So these are common logos we are familiar with, or we've seen one way or the other. So we'll just talk about the front end and the back end in summary. So the front end and the back end developers often work closely together to create a fully functional web application. They collaborate to ensure that the user interface, which is the front end, communicates seamlessly with the server side logic, which is the back end. This collaboration is essential to deliver a cohesive and responsive user experience. In summary, front-end development focuses on the user interface and user experience, while the back-end development deals with the server-side logic, data management, and infrastructure that powers web applications. Both rules are vital for creating successful and functional websites. This is just like a summary of what all I've been saying. So, would let's just talk about understanding the internet. We'll come to this. So, understanding how internet works. The internet is a global network of computers and devices that communicate with each other using a set of rules called protocols. Let's just move further. The internet is made up of many smaller networks, including private, public, academy, business, and government work networks. These networks are connected by a variety of technologies using electronic, wireless, and optical networking. Now, the internet uses the transmission control protocol, Internet Work Protocol, as the standard for communication between devices and network. So when we talk about what internet works now, you say the internet is a global network of computers and devices that communicate with each other. So I go online, I search for a particular website. Here I access it on my system, on my phone. In your location, you go open your system or your phone, you go to that same website www.facebook.com, and you're able to access the same thing I'm seeing over here is the same thing you are seeing over there. So what does that tell us? That we are getting this view of, let's say, www.facebook.com. It's been saved somewhere. There's a central network where this www.facebook.com is, and we are connecting to it. We are actually transmitting to it to get information from that particular website. So that's why you see this internet uses transmission control. So we send the message to www.this through the browser. The browser goes to that particular address, talk of IP address and all that. It goes to that particular address and gets the information about www.facebook.com and prints it for each and one of us to see. So that's why you see the internet is made up of many smaller networks. So this other network, you talk of you see routers, you see different forms of network, you see different ways where we connect to actual systems to have this network, to have this let's say passage, let's use that word, to have these tickets. Yeah, let me use that word, tickets, to access a particular network, to access a particular page, to access a particular website. So now the key components of this, you have where you have the server and the clients. Like we've been talking about front end and back end, see similar things. The server is where the website and applications are stored. So like I said earlier on, you go online, you search for www.facebook.com and you see it on your phone. I do the same thing and I see it on my phone. So this is a place that there's a server, like a computer, a big computer, where Facebook is. Let's just put it like a land. Now Facebook has bought this land. So if I want to access this land, send this message and you get what is inside. Then you have the client component, which is devices like laptop and our smartphone, where we make this request from. So using this pictorial view, we the clients, I use my system, you use your phone, you use your system to access the internet, to get information, to interact with the server. And what does it do? The server brings what we want from it. So we say we want www.facebook.com. It's usually sent through IP address, usually sent through codes, numbers and all that, but we see it as www.sosoandso.com. But what happens there is those www.this.com is being converted to the right numbers, maybe one dot slash this, to actually get the right location of where we are going to. We are going to www.facebook.com. So it's just like let's say We are going to a particular event, we are going to a particular place. You board your vehicle, I board my plane, you board your private jet, whatever means you choose to use of transport. But our main arrival point will be at Academic Conference, Cosmos Conference. So we going to that place, that means of transportation is the internet. That means of transport through which we use to get to Cosmos Conference is the internet. So the internet helps us to interact with the server. Now, this server, there are tons of I'll use the word IP addresses, or let's just put it websites there. So in order for you to access a particular one, that is where you have that URL we use in our website. So www.this, you get this, www.this, you get that. Those are like identity to get a particular website. So this is just a basic idea of how the internet works. I request for something through the name of the website I want to interact with. It goes to the server and search for that website and brings out everything concerning that website for us to see. So that this is a process overview of it. I know it's a little bit confusing at first, but with time we're gonna get acquainted to it. Now, this is a process overview. Let's say you enter a URL, example.com or twitter.com or x.com, and the request travels over the internet to reach the web server. So the web server is where, like I said, tons of thousands of websites, or let's say, yeah, websites are kept. So using that www.example.com gives you that access. It makes that request, it makes the internet to know where it's going to. Like I said, www.this.com is actually it just it just, like I said, the computer understands one and zero. If we say, okay, go to slash this slash five dot five, or this is a little bit vague and not really nice. So another way to simplify it, we have that name, domain name. So we have the main hosting, your IP address of where your website is being kept, or you have a domain name that is linked to that place, so that it will be easy for you to access that particular website. So when you make a request, a URL, when you click on a URL, it's actually a request you are making through the internet to the web browser to search for a particular website, and the server processes the request and sends the web page back to you. So you look at this picture, you say the user clicks on jomot.com, which is the domain name, and it goes to the DNS. So this DNS means domain name server. So what does domain name server do? This is what converts that name, www.facebook.com, to what the system will understand, which is the numbers. Like you see here, you have 159.65. This, that is called the IP address. So that IP address is like the unique identifier for that website you are trying to access. So when you go to the web server, the web server now search with that IP address you have sent to it through and look for the website that is corresponding with what you have sent. And when it does, it brings out the website, the database, all the information about the website, and sent it back to the user, and it displays on your screen. Yeah, this thing happens within split seconds, but this is just what happens. www.whatever.com translates to what the system understands. That's like the ID, unique identifier, that will be used to search through the web server to get a particular website and will move to the web. But in subsequent time, we'll be very familiar with all this. This is just like an overview of how it is. But one thing I know, when we continue, as we move further, as we go further, it becomes easy. Doesn't look like Chinese language, or it doesn't look something foreign to us any longer. But practice, they say, makes perfect. When you continue, when you familiarize yourself with it, it become very easy to get and understand. So what are the important concepts we have? We have the HTTP request, which is that www dot whatever dot com you have sent is a request you are sending, and you have that same response. So when you send it and they search for the website and they get all the website's files and the database information and send it back to you, that is now like the response through that HTTP, through that your URL. It sends it back to the user and you see it displaying on your web page, which is rendering. So the important concept in how the internet work is you send a request, you get a response, and you see it display on your screen. So now we talked about DNS, which is domain name server, which, like I said, translate the domain names like www.google.com into IP addresses. Now it acts like an internet phone book. Yeah, that's a perfect description. So yes, what's your name? I'm looking for Emuraye. Okay, Emuraye. Okay, this is Emuraye. You click on your phone, and when you click on the Emuraye, you see the phone number of Emuraye and you dial it. That's what it happens. So when you pick up your phone, and you go to your contact, your call log, and you click on someone's name. Once you click on the name to call, it's not the name Rukewe, you're calling Pius. It's not that name that is actually doing the call. It's your number. Is that phone number there in the name that's actually connecting to the network and it's actually making that call. That's what happens. That's what domain name system is. The domain name system is actually translates domain names into IP addresses so that the web server can understand. So we have the HTTP. You must have heard it. You must have seen it severally. HTTPS, HTTP slash slash column www dot. All those are the simple meaning of HTTP is hypertext transfer protocol. The protocol used to communicate on the web, and HTTPS is more like a secured it encrypts data for security. So this is where this was the time I was telling us about, okay, the backend developer ensures that security, these are one of the security measures that the backend developer ensures, like securing, encrypting data so that the data rather, so that the users can be safe with and trusting you with their information. Now we'll come to the end of our first session. Sorry, our second session. I want us to take a time. Don't rush through. Just relax. Go through the video little by little. Like in our further sessions, if you have questions, we bring it up. Mind you, just a little key of advice. I learned that, well, I'll not say I learned it the hard way, but in this journey we are about to go through, I want us to learn something. Learn how to be disciplined, learn how to be patient, and learn how to be consistent, which is what I call DPC. Knowledge lies in repetition. You can't just sit and watch a particular video. If you don't practice it, if you don't practice it, when we start our main classes, our interactive classes, you have to be practical. If I show you a code, I give you an assignment, you do it because that is how you learn. That is you being disciplined. You being patient is you having that time to go through painstaking, go understand, moving even where you are getting it wrong, you're trying to get it, you're not getting it correctly. You just have that patience to go through that rigorous so that you're able to get what you want. Then the consistency is you repeating the same thing and not getting tired till you get your desirable result. So just sit back and let's work on and take you to get a good foundations in web development. Thank you very much. See you next time.